Good morning. Welcome to your training. I'm so glad to be speaking with you and assisting you in your assistant principal roles here at Tennyson Middle School. Just as I am assisting you, you will be in charge with assisting the staff in an instructional leadership role. Yes, that's right. I said instructional leadership. I hate to break it to you, but we are all instructional leaders here. To get the best out of our students, we must provide the best. That is why you are here. So let's get started. So what is my role as an instructional leader? I'm so glad you asked that. You are either here to assist the teacher to improve classroom instruction or at the last resort, documentation of contract renewal or termination. As grim as that sounds, that may not be the most important part of your role. The most difficult part is understanding when either one of those applies. So how do we know where these apply? Well, step one, we have to identify your staff. In the coming days, you will be getting to know your staff on a personal and professional level, with students and without. To understand our staff, you have to know everything about them, where they come from, and where they are, and where they want to be. This will help you understand the type of teacher that they are and what drives them. However, the most important part is seeing them in action. To help assist your teachers, you have to observe them. The effective teacher is easy to spot. They see the problems and they can solve them. They have commitment to their craft and are willing to change. On the other hand, the ineffective teacher is just as easy to see. That is the one that is unwilling to change and cannot see problems in front of them. But what about those teachers that fall in the middle? We call these teachers marginally effective teachers. Here are some characteristics to look for. First, marginally effective teachers are effective in some ways, but not in others. They perform well in front of audiences, but remember that the main goal here is to assist teacher improvement and also, in last resort, documentation for renewal or non-renewal. Now that we know what we are looking for, step two is, why are these teachers ineffective? The list here can help you. Therefore, when you are observing classrooms, consider these in making your conclusion about your staff. First, you have level of abstract. Here, you want to be looking at the experience, the knowledge, difficulty solving problems, awareness, and personal problems of your teachers. You'll have to gauge these areas to find out where they fall on abstract. Next, you also have level of commitment. Here, you'll find burnout, self-centeredness, unwilling to change, and personal problems. So consider all of these elements when you're determining where they fall on abstract and commitment. Now that we found our marginally effective teachers, how do we address them? Depending on where they fall on the spectrum depends on how we will treat and interact with them. This is not a one pill solves all kind of thing. We have to be careful not to come across negatively when we are in a negative situation. On the next few slides, we'll address how to use them, but first let's identify and clarify the characteristics of each supervisory style. First, you have the collaborative style. Here, the behaviors of presenting, clarifying, listening, problem solving, and negotiating are used to develop a contract between the teacher and the supervisor. With this approach, the supervisor and teacher actively negotiate the plan of action. Neither the supervisor nor the teacher has a final plan that excludes the other's views, and the final product of the supervisory process is the contract. This is agreed on by both parties and carried out as a joint responsibility. In the directive style, the behaviors of presenting, directing, demonstrating, standardizing, and reinforcing and developing an assignment for the teacher. The directive supervisor judges the most effective way to improve instruction by making standards clear and by tangibly showing the teachers how to obtain such standards. It is a thoughtful, systematic-like approach based on carefully collection of data. This approach implies the supervisor is more knowledgeable about teaching and that his or her decisions are more effective than teachers are when seeking to improve instruction. And finally, the third style is non-directive. The behaviors of listening, encouraging, clarifying, presenting, and problem solving are used to create a teacher's self-plan. This plan rests on the premise that the teacher is capable of analyzing and solving his or her own instructional problems. When the teacher sees the need for change, he or she is more more than ready to implement such change. Throughout the process, a clinical approach to supervision might not be incorporated. Instead, here the supervisor might observe without interpreting or analyzing and give the teacher the opportunity for self-analysis. If the teacher chooses the clinical route, teachers determine the direction of the supervisory process. Once you have identified your marginally effective teachers and the issue, it's time to use what I call DPT. Diagnosis, prescription, and timeline. These are important in resolving an issue. Also, keep in mind that no DPT is the same. There could be plenty of shifts and turns involved in this. Let's take a look at the parts of the DPT. First, you have the diagnosis. Diagnosis is asking what is working and what is not. This is going a long way in understanding the problem. Once you know what needs addressing, it's time to provide a prescription. How are we going to improve? We need a direction now. After this, a timeline. How much time are we providing and setting checkpoints effective for monitoring? On the next slide, we will explain the details how to apply this and your daily role and who has control of each of these. All teachers fall in 4 different categories. The 4 quadrants here will explain. It is also noted that teachers can move from one quadrant to the next. Just refer back to the levels of commitments and the abstract to better understand. First, we have quadrant number 1. These teachers are low on abstract and commitment. Plainly speaking, they are unaware of problems, and when addressed with them, they are unwilling to change. Looking back on the supervisory styles, you would not want to use a non-directive approach. Therefore, a directive approach is needed here. Here, the supervisor, that's you, will be in charge of the DPT. Quadrant 2 houses our highly committed teachers, but low on abstract. These teachers are willing to change and adapt. However, they seem to lack the knowledge, experience to solve the problems that are present. Therefore, a collaborative approach will work here. The supervisor and the teacher work together to implement the DPT. Quadrant 3 houses the most interesting and possible issues. This teacher tends to be high on abstract, but low on commitment. This means the teacher has the experience and the knowledge, but for various reasons is unwilling to change. This could be from either burnout, self-centeredness, or personal issues. So when you're observing these teachers, make sure you make note of that level of commitment. Therefore, the supervisor has to handle these individuals more carefully. There can be a collaborative approach with the diagnosis and the prescription, but the supervisor should handle the timeline. This would address the unwillingness to change. And finally, here we have quadrant 4. This houses the effective teachers. This teacher needs a hands-off approach. The teacher is high on both commitment and abstract. Therefore, the teacher can set control of the diagnosis, the prescription, and the timelines as the supervisor kind of monitors that. The supervisor monitors, observes these teachers with full confidence of their abilities. How do we put this to good use? Well, step 4, I would suggest using the 4 I's. Identify, inquire, investigate, and implement. When you observe your teachers, make it a habit to identify your teachers. This way, this may take more than several visits to identify. After the visits, do a follow-up. Ask them questions about the lessons. Why did they do this and why did they do that? This will help you gauge the type of teacher that they might fall under. After you have identified, inquire. Investigate. If you have identified and inquire, investigate potential pitfalls or areas of improvement. This can be done by celebrating the positive areas and then asking how we can make this better. Next, implement a plan. Whether the style you are using, allowing the teacher to be present allows them a voice. This may make it easier for a teacher to get on board. And finally, All I can say is monitor, monitor, monitor. The more the teacher sees you in the classroom, the more great things will happen. I know that teachers can feel apprehensive when we walk in, but the more we do this, the more those gotcha moments become celebrated moments for great instruction. I hope this helps you navigate your first days here at Tennyson Middle School, where we build instructional leaders of the future.